The American Revolution was the beginning of a journey towards self-governance, independence, and nation-building. This video will explore the crucial events that marked the birth of the United States, the victory at Yorktown, the Treaty of Paris in 1783, and the leadership of George Washington. These moments, filled with struggles, sacrifices, and bold decisions, laid the foundation for a free, independent country. Join us as we explore how these key events shaped the future of the United States and its new path as a nation. The American Revolution was a conflict that went beyond military tactics. It was a struggle for identity, self-determination, and a rejection of colonial rule. From 1775 to 1781, the colonies fought against the world's most powerful empire at the time, Great Britain. The outcome was uncertain for much of the war, but the victory at Yorktown in 1781 was the turning point that led to the end of the war. The Battle of Yorktown took place in Virginia and was the final significant military engagement of the Revolutionary War. By 1781, the British forces, led by General Charles Cornwallis, had been stretched thin, fighting on multiple fronts in America. Cornwallis had moved his army to the port town of Yorktown, hoping to receive reinforcements from the British Navy. The French, who had allied with the American colonists since 1778, saw an opportunity to strike a decisive blow against Britain. General George Washington, leading the Continental Army, coordinated an ambitious plan to trap Cornwallis. Washington, joined by French troops under General Jean-Baptiste Donatien de Vimeur, Comte de Rochambeau, and supported by a French naval blockade commanded by Admiral François-Joseph Paul de Grasse, surrounded Cornwallis. The British forces were caught in a vice, with no escape by land or sea. The siege lasted for weeks, with intense artillery bombardment. Cornwallis, whose position was becoming untenable, tried to negotiate but eventually realized that his forces had no chance of victory. On October 19, 1781, Cornwallis formally surrendered his army to Washington, signaling the end of the major military operations in the war. The significance of Yorktown was not just military. It was a symbol of the unity between the American colonists and their French allies. It demonstrated that a well-coordinated international effort could overcome the might of the British Empire. More importantly, Yorktown was the moment when British resolve to continue the war crumbled. The battle showed that the British could not hold their position in the colonies, and it forced Britain to consider a peace agreement. While the war would not officially end until the Treaty of Paris was signed in 1783, the surrender at Yorktown effectively marked the conclusion of the military conflict. This victory solidified the belief among the American colonists that they could win independence and laid the groundwork for the diplomatic efforts that would follow. After Yorktown, the British government was left with little choice but to negotiate. However, the process of ending the war and securing peace was not as straightforward as the military victory might suggest. It took 2 years of negotiations, but the Treaty of Paris, signed in 1783, officially ended the Revolutionary War and recognized the United States' sovereignty. The negotiations were led by 3 key American diplomats: Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and John Jay. They traveled to Paris to represent the new nation, armed with the knowledge that the British were eager for peace, but also recognizing the importance of securing favorable terms for the United States. The British were weary after years of war, both financially and militarily, and faced mounting pressure from their own people to end the conflict. The treaty included several key provisions. First and foremost, it recognized the United States as an independent nation, with full sovereignty over its territory. The boundaries of the new nation were clearly defined. The United States was granted all land east of the Mississippi River, from the Great Lakes in the north down to Florida in the south. This expansive territory gave the United States a strong foundation for future westward expansion, although the land was sparsely inhabited and would require further settlement. Another crucial aspect of the treaty was the recognition of American fishing rights off the coast of Canada, which was important for the American economy, particularly in the northern regions. Additionally, the British agreed to withdraw their military forces from American territory, though it took several years to complete the process. However, the Treaty of Paris did not resolve all the tensions between the United States and Britain. The treatment of loyalists, Americans who had supported the British during the war, was a contentious issue. Many loyalists had their property seized, and some were even subjected to violence. The treaty promised that their rights would be protected, but these promises were often not fully implemented in practice, leading to lingering resentment. The treaty also left some challenges unaddressed, including the United States' relationship with Native American nations, who were not included in the negotiations. As Americans moved westward, this would lead to further conflicts. Despite these unresolved issues, the Treaty of Paris marked a monumental moment in history, the end of British colonial rule in America and the birth of the United States as an independent country. With the Revolutionary War over and the United States officially recognized as an independent nation, the question arose, who would lead this new nation? The Articles of Confederation, the first governing framework, had proved ineffective, and there was a need for strong leadership. George Washington, who had already proven himself as a military leader, emerged as the natural choice to become the first president of the United States. Washington was elected unanimously in 1789. His presidency was a crucial moment in the history of the United States, as it was not just about leading the country, but also about establishing the role of the presidency itself. Washington was acutely aware of the responsibilities that came with the office and the example he would set for future leaders. He understood that his actions would shape the future of the Republic, and he was determined to ensure that the president's role was clearly defined, with power balanced by the other branches of government. One of the first challenges Washington faced was the need to create a functional government. The country was in disarray after the war, and there was no strong central authority. Washington appointed a cabinet, including key figures such as Alexander Hamilton as Secretary of the Treasury and Thomas Jefferson as Secretary of State. These appointments were instrumental in shaping the policies of the new government and setting the tone for future administrations. Washington also set important precedents that continue to shape the office today. One of the most significant decisions he made was to serve only 2 terms as president, despite pressure to stay in power longer. Washington believed that no one man should hold too much power, and by stepping down after 2 terms, he established the tradition of a peaceful transfer of power. This precedent would later be codified in the 22nd Amendment, ensuring that no president could serve more than 2 terms. Another key aspect of Washington's presidency was his foreign policy of neutrality. As tensions between France and Britain escalated, Washington recognized that the young nation could not afford to become entangled in European conflicts. In his famous Farewell Address of 1796, he advised the nation to avoid permanent alliances with foreign powers, a principle that would shape U.S. foreign policy for much of its history. Washington's approach was pragmatic, focusing on strengthening the nation internally rather than pursuing ambitious foreign interventions. Washington's leadership was not just about setting policies, it was about uniting a fractured country. The United States was still a young and diverse nation, with significant regional differences and tensions. Washington's calm demeanor, sense of duty, and unwavering commitment to the principles of democracy helped bring the country together during these early years. His leadership was a model of civic virtue, and his presidency laid the foundation for the nation's enduring political system. The events of the Revolutionary War, the Treaty of Paris, and George Washington's presidency were all pivotal in shaping the United States. These milestones not only secured American independence, but also set the stage for the development of a democratic and stable government. Washington's leadership in the early years of the Republic established lasting precedents and reinforced the values of liberty and self-governance. Through his guidance, the United States took its first steps toward becoming a powerful, independent nation.